evening, everybody, and welcome to another installment of Meteorology Lab. And we're going probably 9 months continuous here, maybe 10 months on this webcast, and a little bit of a thunderstorm way off to the southeast down there, but in most directions around us, clear skies, and that's kind of been the story most of this week. So, hope you're having a good Friday, and I'm gradually getting this broadcasting software figured out slowly. And I can look at the monitor there and see I probably need to shave here. So maybe you'll see me with a little bit shorter beard when we go on tomorrow night. Let's see. I've got a few things I wanted to pass on. Thanks to Alexi, our newest Patreon donor. That's always much appreciated there. And also, since I'm running this new Open Broadcaster software, let me know if you notice any more lag than what we've had earlier in the week, like a week ago. Because I think I've got the settings just about optimized there. Let's see here. Yeah, I've got some video here from Mike Estwick, and let me put this up, and he's one of our viewers out in Colorado. So I just got to figure out what tab we're on, and it's way over here. And we see a little bit of glaciated thunderstorm tops out there. This is Centennial, Colorado there. And looks like we're looking maybe to the east or to the northeast here. So you can see those mushy tops there, kind of indicative of weaker convection, and there is a lot of dry air in that part of the country. And I had one other frame here to check out. There you go. So even though they may be on the weak side, they can be prolific hailers there in Colorado. You've got the high altitudes and usually kind of a cold atmosphere when we have these central rocky systems moving through, and that's a good recipe there for hail. Also the dry air. Let's see here. I've got one more thing I wanted to bring up, and that's from Tom J. down in Las Cruces. And this is a clip from last year. I'll just run this here, and this is some time lapse looking to the northwest on May 18th, 2016. And that was a pretty good upper air system that was rolling through the El Paso, Las Cruces area. You can see we've got a strong storm moving through the Rio Grande Valley here. And a little bit of rain hits the camera there, and we can deconstruct a little bit of what we're seeing here thanks to the magic of some of the technology I have here. For example, let me go back to that clip there. You'll notice a couple mountains in the background here. I didn't have very much information to go off of on this clip. And you'll see like one little peak here. Let me switch that real quick. Yeah, we'll go with that right there. So you see one little mountain peak right there, and two more here. And they kind of like fall off into the slope here, and then it's flat. Well, I did a little bit of Googling around, and I like to kind of like work up the setups on these cases, because that helps me get a lot of information out of these charts here. And this is Google Earth here. So I was able to kind of pin down what direction we were looking at and which peaks we were looking at. And this mountain here only about 7 miles away, and this one about 13 miles. And that's kind of important because when I was looking through the radar clips, let me show you the very same storm here, looking at GR level 2. And this covers about the same time period. Now this here, that's the mountain that's on the right side. this is kind of how I pinned down exactly which storm we were looking at. And you'll see, like, early on here, there's one little area of showers that comes over the mountain, and then it gets hit by a stronger cell right here. So that matched up pretty well to what I was seeing there on the video. So we were watching this little mountain here, and you see one little area of showers move over, and then they get hit again right there. And this is from the stronger storms off to the west. So this kind of gives me an idea, you know, what exactly we were looking at. So we'll roll this back here and look at the storm. And that's it rolling in, and we're looking at it kind of like this here. And just a few distinguishing features. We can go up to the higher elevations, and we don't see too many severe signatures. We have tops here of about 25 to 30,000. Any idea what this is? If we go up to 5 degrees, you can see more of it, and then it kind of disappears there. That's the anvil cloud on this storm. And here, there's the back of the anvil. So if we do a cross-section, you can kind of see it right there. We're kind of just slicing it like that. So there you go. So those are some neat features we can look at, and we can see that the higher reflectivity is not really elevated in the storm here. And then other characteristics before we move on. Didn't see much in the velocity field, so might have had a little bit of rotation, maybe right around here, very broad scale rotation, but nothing severe like we get here in the Great Plains. But certainly an interesting storm, and I appreciate Tom J. for passing that video on to us. And then we'll head into today's forecast. So there's our storms set up here. And I would call this a wee bit of activity. Official SPC designation, wee bit O activity. Some in the high plains here around Lubbock down to the Fort Stockton area, and one little other area of slight risk there in central Nebraska. So we're going to kind of go over a little bit of this today. So here's the pattern that's driving all of this. Let me get rid of let me get some of the clutter out of the way here so you can see this better. So there's our 250 millibar chart. So we got some troughing there on the west coast. Polar front jet coming onshore in Northern California, up to the Canadian prairies and down to the Great Lakes right there. So here in the Great Plains, we're under a ridge, and that's helping to keep things shut down. But we're starting to get some higher wind velocities coming out over the central Rockies. And when we have that move over the area, we get a little bit more storm organization and where the storms do fire. And here's a little bit of the satellite imagery. This is Texas, showing some activity down around Hereford, southwest of Amarillo, down to around, I guess that would be Tucumcari, Clovis. So it's pretty neat there. We see a few overshooting tops and a little bit of gravity wave stuff going on. Okay, let's see. Before I go any further, let me see how our video cast is doing. I've got some dropped frames here, but I don't know if that's affecting you guys. Time to read chat and see what the verdict is. Okay, let's see. We got Mark and Sue M checking in. Fun with Tech is here, and Ryan Toomey's, Tom J. Let me move this over to my other window here. Mike Wan and Mike Estwick, just saw his cloud video there in Colorado. Ryan Toomey's watching Daniel Shaw live stream. I'd be willing to bet we've got a few chasers out on that activity there. Ron Chalfant is here, and Eddie W. and Alexi watching the tornadoes there. And I do appreciate that Patreon donation. Mick is here, and Ahmed and Kevin McKinney. Ryan says looks pretty severe there on the live stream. Several tornadoes already. Okay, we'll have to take a look at that on GR level 2 for sure. Dorothy Tornado checking in, and let's see here. Tom J saw his video. Ryan watching a massive rotating wall cloud on the stream. Tom J pointing out Picacho Peak a little bit to the west on that one video we saw earlier. Mike Estwick saw Delta V's earlier, about 110 miles an hour. And scrolling down, Daniel is running away, so he doesn't get hook slicing action. Storm's backfilling fast. Alrighty. Sue says, Tim, no buffering, no dropping tonight. That's good news, because I'm looking at the statistics here, and I don't know if you can see this, but it's reporting 1,400 drop frames right there. So I don't know, maybe the codec compensated for that somehow. But anyway, that's good news. If these streams are pretty smooth, I might start bumping up the bit rate a little bit. Okay, let's see. Let's move on forward and take a look at some of the other charts here. I think maybe a good segue for this would be the radar. So let's get that fired up and look at the Amarillo or Clovis radar, one of the two. I guess we'll go for Amarillo here. And here comes the data, so we'll wait a minute on that. And this would be a good time to take a look at the thickness and kind of get a feel for the overall large-scale pattern affecting the weather here. So there you go. There's the ingredients coming together tonight. We've got a pretty deep southerly fetch coming from the Gulf, bringing that moisture northward. And the dry line, we would expect to find that roughly in this trough area here. So some good ingredients there for thunderstorm activity, but the main polar front is well out to the west. And I'm going to put that right in this area here. So roughly from Manitoba down to Wyoming, Las Vegas, and San Diego. And then the warm front would run something like that right there around Minnesota. So a few bumps in that southerly flow here. Little MCS over Iowa and Minnesota there. Got high pressure over the southeast U.S., and that's given us a pattern that kind of resembles a Bermuda high. Not quite to the Bermuda high months yet, but we do have that deep southerly flow coming all the way from the Bay of Campeche down there. Okay, let's see. Radar is still coming in, but you can see that tornado warning coming up there. Source weather spotters confirmed tornado. They're calling a second circulation there 4 miles west of Dimmitt, which has produced a tornado. So certainly some chase action, and I'll give that another minute to finish coming down. So this would be a good time to look at the sounding there for Amarillo. We'll look at the sounding for this morning, because usually when we're forecasting convective activity, that's what we have to go off of. So morning sounding for Amarillo looking like this. So moisture not on the deep side by any means. We see the low-level dew point in the mid-60s, maybe 1,000 or 2,000 feet of moisture, and a lot of dry air above that. But this can all be compensated by the southerly flow, bringing up more moisture to the south. So that's why I start looking at the mixing ratio values. So I start paying attention to those, and I go down to Midland on a day like this, for example. So there's Midland. So this is this morning, and we can see that we've got mixing ratios right around 10 down in Midland. So that's going to be like 50s dew points. Not impressive moisture. So we look around and check out a few more places like Del Rio. That might be indicative of what's working up through Abilene and Sweetwater's San Angelo. And we see a little bit better moisture, values up to maybe 12 to 13 right here, and much deeper. And here you see the cap up at 750 millibars. So that's keeping things kind of shut down there over San Angelo. Lifted sounding for that area is going to look kind of like that right there. So that's your convective inhibition right there. Not much instability, though. Just some very skinny cape up here. So there's a lot of warm air aloft over that part of Texas, and that's what we expect when we have a ridging pattern in place, like what we have today. And we'll take a look at one more sounding. We'll go to Fort Worth, and we know from yesterday that they're going to be a little bit closer to that moisture axis, but not quite showing it there. We see a lot of dry air just off the surface and only some very shallow 10 gram per kilogram, like 50s dew points moisture. Okay, so again, if we want to really fill that in, a good product to go to is on the Pivotal Weather pages. I'll bring that up real quick, and I think that's under the NAM panels. Okay, so let me bring up the NAM here, and I'm going to switch over to the South Plains. Okay, so here it is. It's under upper air moisture here. And I've touched on this about a week ago. It's these dew points at 850 and 925, and those are what I think are critical for building the pre-storm environment. Because this gives you, if you look at surface dew points, that's just one small piece of the picture. 925 gives you your dew points at about 2,000 feet high. 850 gives it at 5,000 feet high. So that gives you your three-dimensional picture of moisture. So we'll look at 925 and just kind of see what it's going for over Texas this morning. And so this shows us that the better moisture is actually just north of the Midland area, and out around Hobbs and around Cannon Air Force Base. So that blue right there, that's going to correspond to 60s dew points. So at 925, that's pretty significant there. Okay, then at the time that storms develop, we can just move this on a little further. And now we have the moisture right where the action is. at this time. So those are some things that you're going to want to look at on a chase day like today. So let's go over to the radar and see if that ever finished loading. And there's our storm right there. Let me fix the cursor mode. Okay. So this is our storm near Hereford and Dimmitt. Again, this has produced tornadoes. Okay, and the structure that we're looking at, this is probably classic to slightly HP-ish, I would say here. Maybe in the classic range. So there's an animation of that radar right there. And of course, the first thing we're going to want to look at is some of the velocity data. And I'll go ahead and set the storm vector from the warning text so that I'll correct our storm mode of velocity movement a bit, and there we go. And here we can see some broad scale rotation. If I measure this, this is about across 4 miles, so this is kind of delineating the mesocyclone in the storm. So the center of it is going to be right around here. And there you can see the relation of that to the storm itself. Kind of tucked right there in the updraft area. And it's kind of ironic, we call this the rain-free base in here. Not exactly rain-free in this case. There is some rain coming down through this updraft area. And let me make sure that's the updraft. We should see some overhang, and yeah, there it is. See above the dot. 25,000 feet, we've got 60 dBZs there. And then the storm tops out there at about 48,000. So let's take a look at a cross-section real quick and see what the storm looks like. Okay, so there we go. You can definitely see some overhang there. So remember, our updraft base is right in this area here. So if I was going to kind of draw out the cloud material, probably be looking at something like that right there. So up here, that's going to be the anvil. And then a lot of this back here, this is the downdraft. So a lot of your stronger cumulonimbus elements, your barrel-shaped updraft, coffee can updrafts, those are going to be in this area here, kind of co-located with the overhang and the center of the meso. So we'll go back down to the surface there and look at a few more products. Let's check out spectrum width. Sometimes you'll get some surprising details there. And I'm not sure I really make anything out of this. I would maybe suspect some of this as being the inflow air. See these areas with high diversities. A lot of times this corresponds to the inflow air, and you can kind of map out the outflow boundaries from that. Might be a little bit trickier in this case, but this might be the RFD right here. Yep, that kind of matches up there. And then for our wind speeds, we can look at the base velocity. And in a situation like this, I'll use this to kind of take a look at the RFD area. Not showing a whole lot of wind here right now. Of course, one big problem is that we are perpendicular to the radar. The radar is way up here. And the RFD is going to mostly be gusting kind of out this way here. So it's kind of hard to sample in this case. Anyway, I see a little bit of maybe some rotation picking up here. Let me make sure I've got the latest frame here. Yeah, I think I kind of started in the middle there, but this will give us a good idea or good opportunity to kind of see the progression of the rotation in the storm. This is as far back as we can go. This is going to be at 8:02 when we started the webcast. You can see some rotation right there. I'm going to switch over to storm relative velocity, and we'll just kind of run this forward here. So probably some of this is going to be some of the tornadic activity. Then it looks like it kind of moves out into this area here. I'm probably going to call that right there. I don't know. Let me take a look at the shear across this. Looks like about maybe 60 knots of gate-to-gate shear there. So that's up in this area right here, kind of in the bear's cage. So we'll advance this forward a little bit more. Probably getting some new meso development out in this area here. And that looks like some possible... hang on. Yeah, I think we would probably be looking for that maybe in this area here. There's inbounds right in this area, very strong outbounds. So this right here might be the wall cloud area. Not seeing really any intense shear in that area. Let me take a look at some of the other panels real quick. We're going to go up to some higher tilts. And this seems to be bringing out some of the higher velocities here. So we're up at 0.8. We see some pretty good rotation right there. And this is kind of tight here. This is about maybe about 1.5 miles across. So we're seeing about 70 knots of shear in that thing there. Okay, back down to the base reflectivity. Storm is looking kind of messy there. And let's see, what else can we look at? We've looked at spectrum width. We can take a quick look at echo tops. Got a lot of people here interested in those. And the echo top algorithm going for about 42, actually about 48,000 down in this area here. Okay, so that's kind of what's going on with that storm right now. We're going to probably go back to that in a minute. And let me just kind of continue on with our forecast. So there's our storm right there in Amarillo, and we can see the strong southerly flow kind of feeding that storm. So we're showing about 20 knots coming into that storm right there. And then the thermodynamics, we're going to go to the temperature and dew point. And we can kind of pick out where the dry line is based on that. So the dry line is going to be it's going to be on the moist side of the moisture gradient, which is going to be this right here. So very good contrast in moisture across that zone. So we would end up placing the dry line probably something like this right here. So our storm definitely along that dry line. And as we've seen, the moisture axis pretty far to the west. So we're going to call that probably right in the area right there. So things are pretty far west today, and certainly a high plains chase day. Okay, let's head into the forecast, and then we'll come back to that one storm. And I think we're missing something. I think we need to cover the dynamics really quickly. So let's do that. Okay, so starting out right now, here's the dynamics that we have. And you can see over Texas, we don't have a big trough in place. Nothing like that. No big short waves. And this is actually one of the more subtle days as far as dynamics go. And that can be important because it avoids producing a lot of widespread thunderstorm activity. You don't have things blowing up into a big MCS. You get only a couple of isolated storms, and that gives you some of your best chase potential. And usually it's when the stronger dynamics start rolling in that things get a little bit tougher as far as chasing goes. So anyway, most of the stronger flow over the northern plains there, well up to the north. And we're starting to get a little bit of height falls there in the southern Rockies. So this is on Saturday here. A couple weak waves working across Texas and Kansas. So certainly possible more of the same tomorrow. And then we get this one strong trough moving across Colorado and Wyoming around Monday. Okay, so that brings us finally to the forecast, and let me put that up here. I'm going to see if I can put up that date and time up at the top. That's very hard to do because usually if I try to include this, then stuff down here gets cut off. So let me see what I can do here. Okay, we'll see how this works. So I'm going to run that back and start our forecast sequence. There's tonight, and you can see Great Plains cyclone right there and the southerly flow out ahead of it, and the polar front out to the west. So for tomorrow night, for Saturday, not a whole lot of change. The polar front makes some progress across the northern plains. We see that trailing off into Nebraska and west Kansas. The cyclone in southwest Kansas and the Panhandle continues to be kind of active there. So maybe a repeat for tomorrow. GFS going for the Dodge City area, maybe down to Childress along the Caprock there. And Gulf still open for business right there. Then for Sunday, when we do the webcast, then we get a little bit of a change here. We start to get some of the high pressure moving in. Looks like the cold front maybe sinks into the Ozarks down into northern Oklahoma there. So we get a little bit of low-level forcing entering the picture here. But possibly another day on the Caprock out around Childress there on Sunday. Then heading into Monday, southerly flow still in place here. Looks like our front starts retreating to the north with a southerly flow and maybe lifting up into Kansas a little bit. And we see a little bit of the upslope flow there in South Dakota and Wyoming. Maybe a few more showers in the same area around the Caprock. Then for Tuesday, next frontal system moving through the Midwest there. And then things start to get active out in the Great Basin area. There's our next frontal system. So that being there is going to start increasing the upper level flow across the southern Rockies. So maybe by Thursday and Friday we'll see chase potential, storm potential increase about a week from now. So there we are for Wednesday. Front working its way across the southern Rockies. Then for Thursday, kind of a complex picture here. I would say we have a front kind of like that, maybe a little bit of Canadian air working south, and this is the Pacific air mass right there. So certainly some low-level forcing there. And for Friday, things really pull together here. Looks like we've got a very strong frontal system moving into Texas right there. And this is actually broken up into a cold front and a warm front like that. So obviously most of the severe weather potential is going to be focused in this area along the warm front. That's where you're going to get your curved photographs. And also the thermal gradient is a little bit weaker along warm fronts. Cold fronts, you have a stronger thermal gradient, and you get a tendency for a lot of outflow dominant storms along those. But we will see how that plays out. Looks like snow there in the Rockies. Kind of late for that. Anyway, the whole system starts moving into the Midwest, and there it is clear in Texas. And we'll probably see some polar air moving south Saturday into Sunday. Some very low thicknesses up here in the Hudson Bay area. So those will come southward. Probably a cold day for the Great Lakes there. Some of that filtering maybe down to the Arkansas and Oklahoma area for the 24th, 25th. That'll kind of shut things down right there. Maybe push some of it out to the high plains. Then for 26th, 27th, that's getting pretty far out there, but southerly flow starts picking up, and given all the fronts that we've had moving through the area over the next week and a half, this is probably going to be out to lunch, I would bet. So, all right, back to our activity there in the Texas Panhandle. We'll check that out real quick. Still got a tornado warning for that area. Let's check out the velocities. Looks like this RFD updraft kind of shifting south a little bit towards the Dimmitt area to the town itself. Storm relative velocities. Got a lot of outbounds in this area right here. And the only strong shear that I'm seeing, at least that I think I can see on here, is right there. So I wonder if these storms have gone through maybe kind of an outflowish phase here in the past 5 or 10 minutes. So there's the chroma key there, giving that a workout, and this is the area that I'm looking at right here. So let me bring up those velocities. I'm seeing about, not very much, just 32 out, and it's kind of spread out now. A little bit of a convergence signature starting to show up right here. This is about the centroid for that. So this is kind of what I'm seeing right there. And we can see that we've got 38 to 40 inbound right there, and relative to the ground, that's about 50 to 55 knots. Maybe that's sucking some good inflow up right there. And there's the relationship of that to the reflectivity. I think we've got probably a new updraft base organizing there southeast of Dimmitt. So I'd probably be watching that for possible development, and look at that reflectivity gradient right there. From that bin to that bin, we go from 38 to 51 dBZs. So probably some hail starting to hit Dimmitt right there. Those very high dBZs, 60 right there. So I guess the place where you'd want to be, depending on where this is moving, either this road here or on this road here. But of course, I'd probably want some south options on that road. So back to storm relative velocity, checking that out. So seeing that convergent rotation signature there. The gate-to-gates on this are in the 30 to 40 range. It's not particularly high, but it's the overall pattern that's kind of interesting here. And the spectrum width. That's interesting. Some very high diversities right in that area right there, and that's near that boundary between the outflow and the inflow. Okay, anything else going on? Well, we got some tail end activity way out here. I would imagine there's probably some chasers on that. Looking at the storm relative velocities, looks like it's all outbound here. Maybe a little bit of a couplet right in this area here. See right there on the base velocity showing some strong inbounds here. So there could be a bit of an updraft that's in place maybe right in that area. But of course the main action right now appears to be southeast of Dimmitt. So maybe I'm going to take a look at the chat real quick. And I'm probably not going to be able to read all this, but a lot of activity on here. Massive hail core from Ryan Toomey's. Buffer NATO, was that us? Did we lose the stream there? Large radar indicated tornado warning from Ryan. Monster and Dimmitt. That was just a few minutes ago, by the way. Big CGs and backlit tornado looks like on the live streams. Ryan says, what's the purple top? High meso top. I've probably missed that. I'm not too sure what that refers to. Any idea of the strength of the tornado? I don't really have any clues, and I don't have the live streams up because that would kill my bandwidth. But probably some of the better assessments would be coming from those live streams, so I would certainly check those out. Okay, well, that's 42 minutes for our live cast, and that's probably a good stopping point. So lots of activity right there around the Dimmitt area. And starting to get dark, so I'd imagine there's probably not going to be too much more video coming from that area, except for lightning. Looks like the circulation there is kind of weakened a bit in that last frame. But anyway, I think that'll probably wrap it up. I appreciate you all watching, and hopefully we'll see you all tomorrow night. And take care.